When a $40 million RE health system collapsed in California, engineers at LuxMind were scrambling, until a 76-year-old woman in a white blazer quietly pointed to the floor. They laughed. She walked away. But within 90 seconds, the system was back online. Her name? Maye Musk. And the man who mocked her, Jared Sloan, would soon watch his entire empire unravel. This isn't a story about age. It's about consequences. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And if this story moves you, don't forget to hit subscribe. We've got more just like it. Under the soft fluorescent lights of the Oakland Community Center, Maye Musk adjusted her white blazer and looked around the modest classroom. The folding chairs were half filled, mostly senior citizens, a few young mothers, and one boy who didn't quite fit. He was sitting alone in the last row, hoodie pulled up, arms crossed tightly over a thin frame. 11, maybe 12. He hadn't touched the snack tray like the others. He hadn't opened the nutrition guide Maye had printed for the class. He hadn't said a word. May's voice carried gently across the room, steady with years of experience but softened with age. Breakfast is not a luxury. It's your body's first promise to itself. She smiled as a few attendees nodded, jotting down notes in the margins of their handouts. But her eyes kept drifting toward the boy in the back. He didn't move. Not even when she mentioned eggs or protein pancakes or banana oatmeal. But when she spoke about the metabolic importance of protein within the first 30 minutes of waking, he did something small. Something only someone like Maye would notice. He swallowed. Hard. As if the very idea of food triggered something inside him, something more urgent than curiosity. Maye had seen that before. Decades ago. In a sun-warped kitchen in Pretoria, where a younger version of herself had once split a dry slice of bread with her son, Elon, and pretended she wasn't hungry so he'd eat the bigger half. That same look. Hollow, alert, proud. A kind of hunger that learned not to beg. The class moved on, shifting from meal timing to micronutrients. Maye passed around a simple chart showing how to balance a meal on a limited budget. She explained how beans and whole grains, when paired, formed a complete protein. Most nodded. A few asked questions. But the boy, he never looked up. Not once. After class, as the others gathered their things, Maye took her time packing up. She watched as the boy stood, still silent, and walked toward the door with the same caution someone might use in a place they weren't sure welcomed them. He paused for just a second near the snack table, then turned away. She called out gently, not loud enough to embarrass him. "You didn't take anything to eat." He froze. Maye stepped closer, keeping her tone casual. "I always make too many peanut butter sandwiches. Habit from raising 3 kids." She lifted one, wrapped neatly in wax paper, and held it out like it was nothing more than a leftover. The boy looked at it, then at her. His eyes were dark, too old for his face. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he took the sandwich, nodded once, and left without a word. Maye stood still, watching the door swing shut behind him. There was something about the silence he carried with him that felt familiar. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't rudeness. It was the kind of silence that built walls, not to shut the world out, but to hold it up, like scaffolding around something that might collapse if anyone looked too close. Later that evening, as Maye sat in her apartment preparing slides for next week's session, her thoughts returned to the boy. She didn't know his name. Didn't know why he kept coming. But she knew the look in his eyes. And she had learned, after a lifetime of being underestimated, that people who tried to disappear often had the most to hide. She didn't know it yet, but the sandwich she gave that boy, simple, quiet, unnoticed, would become the first thread in a story that stretched far beyond Oakland. And by the time it was done unraveling, it would shake the walls of institutions far more powerful than the room they had both quietly exited that day. 1 week later, Maye Musk sat alone at her kitchen table, the same peanut butter sandwiches untouched in the center of a porcelain plate. Her email was open on the tablet beside her, the glow of the screen casting a quiet blue on her hands. The subject line read, Advisory Council Membership Status. The message was short, polite, sanitized. "We thank you for your contributions, but moving forward, the committee is seeking members with a more adaptive understanding of emerging nutritional technologies. She read it twice. Then once more. There was no mention of her decades of service. No mention of the program she helped design that fed over 100,000 children in food deserts during the pandemic. No explanation. Just an erasure. Across the screen, headlines bloomed like weeds. AI whiz Jared Sloan saves state nutrition platform in under 2 minutes. Stanford engineer quietly resolves public health crisis using LuxMind AI. Not a word about the community center. Not a word about the old woman who had quietly offered the correct fix while standing behind a tray of peanut butter sandwiches. A few days later, her speaking engagement at a symposium in Denver was postponed indefinitely. 2 collaborators on an upcoming ebook quietly withdrew. The publisher emailed to say they were re-evaluating direction. The silence was not loud. It was surgical. Smooth. Almost elegant in how efficiently it erased her without anyone having to say her name. May didn't cry. She had long ago learned that tears didn't fix institutions built to forget women like her. She made tea. She fed the dog. She opened her laptop and reorganized her folders. The rhythm of small routines had always been a kind of armor. But that night, as she folded laundry, her fingers paused on a sweater that no longer held the scent of her son. The one who used to call her at 2 a.m. from the floor of a factory. The one who used to say, "You're the smartest person I know, Mom. Not just for your brain, but for the way you don't let people define you." She sat down, sweater in hand, and stared out the window. The sky was that pale gray just before real darkness. The kind of light that doesn't fight the night, it yields to it, with dignity. She thought of the boy in the back row. Gabriel. She had asked his name after class on Wednesday. He'd whispered it like a secret. He still hadn't said much else. But he'd been back every day since. Still didn't eat. Still didn't speak. But he listened. Closely. And every time she looked at him, she saw the same thing. Not hunger. Not defiance. But containment. A child holding too much weight in a body not meant for burden. She wondered how many times he had been overlooked. How many times someone looked at him and thought, too quiet, too late, too much trouble. The same way they now looked at her. Too old. Too irrelevant. Too analog in a world of code. Her fingers curled around the edge of the folded sweater. Then she said it out loud, not bitterly, not with anger, but with the slow, precise weight of a woman who had swallowed too many silences. I've been quiet too many times in my life. But not this time. No one heard her. But the air in the room shifted, like something dormant had turned its head toward the light. Something not angry, but awake. It was late afternoon when the email arrived. The subject line was plain, what happened at LuxMind? May opened it out of habit, expecting another polite dismissal, another digital sigh from someone too busy to care. But the message was short, direct, and unsettling in its clarity. Hi Ms. Musk. My name is Lucia Delgado. I was in the control room during the LuxMind system failure. I know what really happened. And I think you deserve to know too. Can we talk? No credentials. No title. Just a quiet offer in a digital envelope. May stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she replied with a time and place. She chose a coffee shop 3 blocks from the community center. Public enough to be safe. Quiet enough to hear the truth. Lucia was already there when May arrived. Young, sharp eyes, no makeup, hair tied in a loose bun. She stood up quickly, offered a nervous smile, and gestured to the booth. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. May nodded. "And Saturday you said you were in the room." Lucia glanced around, then slid a tablet across the table. The screen displayed a log window, time-stamped from the day of the system crash. It showed exactly what had been changed in the AI model. And more importantly, who had authorized it. "It was your suggestion," Lucia whispered. "Normalizing the protein index. That's what restabilized the model." May didn't speak. She only looked at the log, watching the lines of code like old memories scrolling back into view. Lucia leaned in. After the system recovered, Jared sent a memo to our internal chat. Said not to credit external guests for any part of the fix. I didn't think much of it. But the way he laughed. I knew something was wrong. She tapped again, pulling up a screenshot of another document. This one was an older public research paper, dated 5 years ago. At the bottom, it listed a contributor, Maye Musk. He pulled your framework. Your model. The one from your open access series on AI-assisted nutrition interventions in pediatric care. He used the same flow logic. Almost word for word. Maye kept her hands still. She had trained herself, long ago, not to show surprise in public. But her breath slowed. There it was. Not just dismissal. Not just silence. Theft. Lucia wasn't finished. There's one more thing. She opened an email. Internal. From Jared. To the senior dev team. Please scrub any mention of the older woman in today's visitor logs. Don't include her in any debrief summaries. Frame the fix as part of the failover auto script. The board doesn't need distractions. Lucia closed the tablet gently and looked up. I didn't know who you were, at first. Just that you were calm. You didn't push. You didn't correct anyone. But I saw the way Jared looked at you after the system came back. He knew. Maye's voice, when it came, was soft and precise. And what made you reach out now? Lucia hesitated. Her voice cracked just slightly. Because my mother works in a clinic that uses LuxMind's data. And because I grew up watching women like you get erased by men like him. And I guess I'm tired of it. Maye looked at her. This young woman, not yet 30, standing in the same space she had stood in countless times before. Not with fists. But with facts. Not with anger. But with quiet defiance. She reached for the tablet. Scrolled once more through the logs. The old code. The email. She didn't shake her head. She didn't sigh. She simply said, "Good. Then let's begin." The first version of the tool was built in silence. Lucia worked from her apartment in San Leandro. Maye, from the small desk beside her kitchen window, where sunlight hit the coffee mug just right at 10 a.m. They didn't need a team. They didn't need a board. Just two women with a shared purpose, a secure server, and an idea that had lived too long in the shadows. They called it Audit Minds. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't even branded. It was a lightweight, open-access diagnostic platform designed to test AI-driven nutrition models for one thing: clinical integrity. Not performance. Not optimization. Just the simple, critical question: was the data telling the truth? Maye focused on building the integrity metrics, pulled from decades of clinical nutrition standards. Lucia coded the interface and wrote the parser that could sit atop any existing LuxMind system without detection. Within 10 days, it was ready. They sent it out quietly. No press releases. No public posts. Just a short email to 13 medical institutions known to rely on LuxMind's predictive nutrition models. The email didn't ask for credit or partnership. It simply read, "This tool is free. It will not collect your data. It will only tell you if your current system is omitting or distorting nutritional variables in pediatric care. Use it or delete it. We'll never ask either way." Within 48 hours, 2 responses arrived. The first came from a pediatric unit in Fresno. A quiet thank you. A report attached. Their LuxMind-generated care plan had missed multiple micronutrient deficiencies in children flagged as stable by the system. 12% of profiles showed discrepancies in iron and zinc markers. Several flagged patients had been suffering unexplained fatigue for months. The second came from a children's hospital in Nevada. More serious. 3 infants classified as low risk had in fact shown declining vitamin D levels for weeks. Their caretakers had been told AI monitoring is in progress. Audit Minds had flagged it in under a minute. Lucia forwarded the emails to Maye with a single line. "They're seeing it." Maye read the messages slowly, then set her tablet down and closed her eyes. Not from exhaustion, but from the weight of confirmation. The knowledge that something buried beneath Jared's perfect charts had been real. The missing 12% wasn't just data. It was children. Still, she didn't speak out. She didn't call a lawyer. She didn't post on social media. She let the silence work for her now, like water moving under the foundation of something too heavy to stand. The next week, 3 more hospitals ran the audit and confirmed similar findings. Variability suppression in lower-income zip codes. Protein absorption factors overwritten by population averages. Jared's system was optimizing performance by erasing the margins. And in the margins lived the most vulnerable. Inside Luck's mind, questions began to surface. Quiet ones. A nurse practitioner from Missouri sent a polite inquiry to the central team. Has the model been adjusted recently to simplify nutrient analysis protocols? We've noticed a drop in anomaly alerts in underweight children. Jared replied within 2 hours. Model remains unchanged. Minor visualization updates only. No action required. But he didn't sleep that night. He rechecked the server logs. He pulled the patch history. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Like someone had made sure it would. When he asked his lead engineer about the report from Nevada, she hesitated. It's not public. But yes. They ran a third-party audit. Jared leaned forward. Who? She shrugged. Nobody official. Just a tool someone sent over. Free. No label. Called it Audit Minds. That was the first time he felt it. Not fear. Not yet. But the cold recognition that something had slipped past him. And whoever built it knew exactly where to look. It started with a whisper on a Friday morning. A small Twitter account, created just days earlier under the name Insight for All, posted a single screenshot of a system audit log. It showed a timestamp sequence where Audit Minds had flagged data suppression in a LuxMind pediatric nutrition model. The caption underneath was short. Neutral. Clinical. 12% missing. That's not a glitch. That's a design. No hashtags. No emojis. No outrage. Just the truth, quietly placed. By noon, 5 more screenshots appeared. From 5 different hospitals. All anonymous. All showing the same pattern: selective omissions, flattened data, care recommendations skewed by performance optimizations that erased outliers, meaning the children most in need. By sunset, the hashtag began to take shape. /truth-has-no-age. It started trending not because someone shouted it into the algorithm, but because someone else whispered it back. A nurse in Portland. A nutritionist in Chicago. A mother in El Paso whose son had been labeled normal by the system while steadily losing weight. No one said Maye Musk's name. But everyone knew the shape of the shadow behind the movement. Inside LuxMind's headquarters, Jared Sloan called an emergency strategy meeting. The boardroom was packed. PR advisors. Legal staff. Engineers. Marketing leads. A senior vice president from the parent company. Jared stood at the front of the room, a screen behind him flashing screenshots and threads from the unfolding social firestorm. This is a coordinated misinformation campaign, he said, keeping his tone even. Someone is distributing altered data through unverified tools. We believe the source is a rogue former collaborator. He clicked to a blurred image of Audit Mind's interface. We have reason to believe this tool was built by a woman who was present during our system recovery last month. She was never formally involved. She may be using outdated or incorrect frameworks to undermine our credibility. I want a report drafted linking Audit Minds to unethical data harvesting. A young staffer raised his hand. His voice was careful. Sir, that tool didn't harvest anything. It's read-only. Jared shot him a glare. Then frame it as irresponsible use of diagnostic access. We need to establish doubt. Another voice spoke, this time from the corner. Calm. Female. Older than the rest. Or you could tell the truth. The room turned. It was Dr. Nancy Yates, longtime pediatric specialist and ethics advisor. She folded her arms slowly. You asked us to delete a visitor log last month. I checked the archive. You removed her name. You changed the timestamps. And you said she had no impact on the system restoration. Jared's jaw clenched. That's outside the scope of this discussion. No. It's not. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It's exactly the scope. The room held its breath. Then, as if the day hadn't yet reached its limit, a ping echoed through the phones in the room. One of the PR staff opened a message. Then another. And another. A dozen alerts lit up the room. Someone had leaked a video. It opened with a shaky angle from a conference room. Jared's voice was unmistakable. I don't care if she guessed the fix. She was some old lady in a white coat handing out sandwiches. She thinks protein indexes make her an AI expert? She's a kitchen in heels. Scrub the logs. Rewrite the summary. We're not giving credit to someone who doesn't even understand what a neural weight is. The laughter in the room was audible. His face was clear. His tone, smug. The clip was under a minute. But it had already been shared 50,000 times in the first 20 minutes. The hashtag didn't just trend. It exploded. /truth has no age was now everywhere. Television anchors read the transcript. Ethics boards convened emergency sessions. The Centers for Disease Control released a preliminary statement. We are aware of recent concerns regarding the integrity of AI-driven nutrition systems used in pediatric care. In light of preliminary evidence, the CDC is initiating an inquiry into LuxMind's data practices and clinical impacts. Hospitals began freezing contracts. 2 of the 13 institutions that had received audit minds pulled out of LuxMind's renewal pipeline. 1 published their full internal audit results, confirming critical blind spots in care recommendations. Jared locked his office door that night, alone with a screen full of chaos. He clicked refresh. Again and again. Watching the numbers rise. Watching his name appear in articles beside the words bias, suppression, failure. Somewhere out there, a woman he had called irrelevant had quietly redefined the conversation around data ethics in medicine. And he knew, there was no statement he could draft, no press release clever enough to unwrite what the world had now seen. Because sometimes, it isn't the volume of the voice that matters. It's the weight of the silence that followed. The auditorium was quiet, not the kind of silence that came from disinterest, but the kind that follows just before something important is said. The kind that holds breath. The kind that waits. Maye Musk stepped up to the podium at the CDC's Ethics in Health Data Forum without papers, without slides, without notes. She didn't need them. Her blazer was cream, her posture was upright, and her hands rested lightly on the edges of the wood, as if she was steadying the room itself. In the rows before her sat policymakers, researchers, hospital administrators, and executives from the largest AI health tech companies in the country. And somewhere in the 4th row, rigid in his chair, sat Jared Sloan. Maye looked out at them all. Then she began. In the last 3 months, she said, we've witnessed the collapse of trust in a system that was sold to the public as intelligent, adaptive, and ethical. We believed that algorithms would make us faster, smarter, more accurate. But what we forgot, what too many of us still forget, is that speed is not the same as wisdom. That efficiency is not the same as care. She paused, letting the words settle. Audit Minds was built with no funding, no staff, no intention of profit. It was not meant to be disruptive. It was meant to be protective. Of patients. Of children. Of the quiet margin cases that were being erased to make the data look better. A chart appeared behind her, projected by the conference team. It showed a statistic no one in the room had seen before. Only 0.8% of existing AI health platforms conduct routine ethical screening of their training data inputs. Not model outcomes. Inputs. She turned back to the room. We're testing accuracy. We're testing scale. But we're not testing the integrity of what we feed these systems in the first place. And when the data is flawed, when it's biased, when it's incomplete, then optimization is just automation of harm. There was no applause. Not yet. Just silence. Deep. Unblinking. After the panel adjourned, the hallway filled with soft murmurs and hard stares. Jared moved toward the exit, chin high but shoulders tight. He hadn't spoken during the forum. His formal suspension from LuxMind had arrived that morning. The hearing into his actions would begin the following week. He spotted Maye alone by a water table, rehydrating slowly, eyes calm. He hesitated, then stepped toward her. "You could have let it go," he said under his breath. "No one would have remembered." Maye turned, gently setting down her paper cup. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "The first time I stayed quiet," she said, "my grandmother died because a rural clinic misread her symptoms and didn't listen to the woman in the room who knew better. That woman was my mother." She looked directly at him. "I didn't say anything then. I didn't say anything when it happened again. Or the next time. But I'm not quiet anymore. Not when silence costs lives." Jared said nothing. There was nothing to say. Later that evening, as the summary of Maye's speech circulated among hospital boards and university departments, something unexpected happened. The American Pediatric Association issued a statement recommending that all AI nutrition systems undergo quarterly third-party audits, beginning immediately. 3 major hospitals adopted AuditMind's protocols before the week was out. Maye's name was listed not as creator, but as founder emeritus. In her apartment, Maye sat quietly at the window. The same one where sunlight used to warm her coffee mug at 10 a.m. Lucia had sent her a message that morning. "They're rewriting training protocols now. One line at a time. You started something, Maye." She smiled faintly. Not with pride. Not with triumph. But with the quiet peace of a woman who had waited a long time to be heard. She hadn't wanted revenge. She had wanted the truth to matter. And now, finally, it did. 1 year later, the name Maye Musk no longer trended with hashtags. It didn't need to. Her work lived in smaller places now, on hospital intake forms that asked the right questions, on nutrition dashboards that no longer filtered out edge cases, and in protocols quietly adopted by institutions that once refused to question the models they trusted too blindly. Ethica AI had no glossy logo, no investor pitch decks, no ambitions of becoming the next big thing. It lived in code repositories and academic papers. It trained auditors and engineers, not to build faster systems, but to build fair ones. It didn't seek to disrupt. It sought to remind. At the last global conference on AI in healthcare, the World Health Organization cited Ethica's findings in a keynote on algorithmic equity. Their report noted that AI models, when left unexamined, didn't just reflect the world's inequalities, they amplified them. Somewhere in the 5th footnote of that report was a sentence. This principle was first highlighted by a post-incident audit performed by the Ethica AI team, led by researcher and advocate Maye Musk. She never mentioned it. Jared Sloan, once the boy genius of LuxMind, was no longer CTO. His title had disappeared from press materials months ago. His resignation had followed a quiet but sharp board vote. Rumors said he had applied for several roles, consulted for startups, even pitched a new venture. But the industry had a long memory. He was no longer the future. He had become a cautionary tale. No lawsuit had been filed against him. No arrest. No scandal made for headlines. But the silence around his name grew louder than any accusation ever could. Meanwhile, in a small clinic in rural Texas, a boy named Mateo, age 9, was finally gaining weight after months of unexplained fatigue. His chart had been reclassified when the clinic implemented new flagging criteria derived from the Ethica model. His mother cried when the nurse told her they'd caught something others had missed. She didn't know the name of the woman who'd made that possible. She didn't need to. That, Maye thought, was enough. She now taught twice a week, virtually, to a rotating group of graduate students and early career developers from around the world. Her class had no prerequisites. The only rule was this: you had to build with both hands, one technical, one ethical. Today, 40 young engineers filled the Zoom screen, from Cape Town to Minneapolis to Seoul. They listened as Maye closed her lecture with the same words she always used, not as a speech, but as a reminder. I don't need to be remembered as a model, or a mother, or even a scientist. I only need one thing. For someone to live because the truth we told refused to stay buried. For someone, just one, to be seen in the data because we taught the machine not to look away. The students were silent for a moment. Then someone, a young woman in Lagos, unmuted and said softly, "We hear you." Maye nodded once. Then teach it forward. The call ended. The screen went dark. The room around her was quiet. But outside, far beyond her walls, the work continued. It didn't wear her name. It didn't need to. Because sometimes the legacy isn't young. And it doesn't shout. It endures.